Okay, I'll call the order of Sparks City Council meeting of May the 8th with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini, absent. Council members Abbott,
Here.
Lawson,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Bybee, Deere,
Here.
City Attorney Adams,
Here.
City Manager Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Thank you. If everybody will stand, we do not have an invocation speaker, but we bring one with us. So our Councilman Dare will do the invocation.
Would you please join me? Lord, we come to you and we thank you for today. We do lift up our mayor, and I pray you be with him and his wife and his family during this time of health issues. I pray you guide him and keep him healthy. Be with our meeting here today. Lord, I pray you give us wisdom in each thing we walk forward with. Thank you for your favor on our city. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you remain standing, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tina, would you lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll open up the public comment period. If anybody wishing to speak in the audience, you'd fill out a card. I'd appreciate it. First up is Anonymous. Come on up. You have 3 minutes, ma'am. Welcome.
This is a copy of the letter from which I read last council meeting, and it is signed by Thomas Arthur Ritchie Jr. He's president of the District Judges Association, and he made reprehensible statements such as photographs of bruises to children, corroborating police reports, corroborating medical reports, and witness statements taken at the crime scene do not constitute domestic violence to the child.
Ma'am, hang on one second. Can we hear her? Is she on?
The only time I didn't ask.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's on to me. Can you hear her? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So this is on? Okay. So this letter has a 7-page attachment. Page 2 is missing. I don't know if that's nefarious or an error by the judge, but Teresa Gardner will have this letter. I hope at some point this council will start engaging in what is happening to children in the city of Sparks. They have to go to these district court judges and be denied protection orders from the judges, such as Chuck Weller when he denied Charla Mack a protection order and she was murdered by her husband. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, George McNally. Come on down, George. Welcome. And you have 3 minutes also, sir.
Push it or what?
You should be good to go.
All right. I usually don't need a microphone because I'm an old jarhead. Myself and my colleague Jennifer Richards, we are the lawyers over at the Senior Law Project, and we're here in line with the Older Seniors or Older Citizens Month this month to let you know, lawyers, you don't hear lawyers use this word very often, but we offer free legal
No,
advice.
you're not a lawyer.
Yes, I am. We offer free legal services for seniors of Sparks, Reno, Washington County. We're available there, not 24/7, but Monday through Friday, and we've helped a lot of folks, and we just wanted to let you guys know that somebody comes in, they've got a legal issue, shoot them over to us, and we'll see what we can do with them. That's all kind of what we came here for. I know Jennifer's got a couple of comments she'd like to make real quick. This is like the final four,
Jennifer Richards? Yes. Okay, we can give you another 3 minutes if you'd like. And you can take his up.
I won't take up too much of your time. As George mentioned, we're at the Senior Law Project. We are located at the main senior center in Reno, but we regularly do outreach here at the Sparks Senior Center. Just wanted to let you know a couple of the recent cases that we've had with Sparks residents. Recently, we helped a disabled veteran in Sparks with a notice to vacate that he received after he'd been living in his apartment for over 10 years. We assisted him and also provided some resources for social services. We work really closely with a lot of other agencies to not only provide legal advice, but to provide referrals to mental health and social services as well. Number two, we helped an elderly woman who had multiple sclerosis living here in Sparks, who was facing an eviction and a loss of her housing voucher. We were able to keep her in her home and protect her housing voucher, which is crucial. Once you lose the voucher, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to regain it. Third, we helped a severely mentally ill client here in Sparks. We prevented an eviction, which would have put her at an increased risk of homelessness, and we provided her with some assistance with some social services as well. Recently, at an outreach at the Sparks Senior Center, we were able to connect a client who was facing some domestic abuse in her home. We were able to connect her with services and provide her some legal resources so she wouldn't have to suffer continued elder abuse. And that's just what we've seen recently. The housing issues are our biggest crisis right now. George and I are the only attorneys in the office. As of April, we've seen an increase of cases and housing issues up from last year. We're about 35% more than what we were last year. And we have a reduced staff now. So
I mean, I don't know if this is proper or not, but for example, in just the 4 months of 17, we have handled about half as many as we did all of last year. The housing issues, I'm sure y'all are probably aware, is critical. And some of these folks are come in and they have their sole income is Social Security. They're scared to death, and they sometimes wait until it's almost too late. So getting the word out that we're out here as soon as something crosses their threshold and we can see them, there's a lot of times we can save them from being homeless.
And some of that's bad actors. Some of the landlords aren't following the process, they're not following the law, and we're there to help them enforce their rights. There are some added protections for seniors in the statute that gives them extra time. And we're just here as a resource. If you're seeing these kinds of cases, we accept the referrals, and we're available to do outreaches. And
we're the #1 watch city council meeting in the country. We're rated the highest viewership. So we know we've got millions of people out there. Why don't you give them your phone number and website?
Do that. It's the Senior Law Project. Phone number is 775-334-3050. Email is, well, let's see.
we left some brochures
Yeah.
out front, and we've provided some to the council, and I'll leave some business cards out front for anyone that needs them.
Thank you.
Emails would be gmcnally@nlslaw.com or .net.
Hey, thank you, folks. Thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Pleasure. Adios.
Adios. Okay, next up is it Joan Lee? Joan, come on down. Welcome.
My name is Joan Lee, and I'm also here in observance of Older American Month. I'm a volunteer with RSVP, which is Retired Senior Volunteer Project. We provide free respite for caregivers of Alzheimer or dementia patients or anyone else that cannot be left home alone, especially those that cannot afford in-home paid helpers. I've been doing this since I retired from the county in 2009. I find it very rewarding. I've never spoken before city council, but that's part of my duty is to do this. I also am leaving brochures out front with business cards and brochures. We can also be contacted through the University of Nevada Division of Aging RSVP program. And I've run out of courage. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming down. Thank you very much. Kim Sinitsky. Hi, Kim. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you. And to all the millions of people out there watching. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
My name is Kim Szynski. I'm from 39 North Downtown and here to give you an update. 39 North Business Connection is part of the committees that we have, and our board of directors member, Lisa Jansen, is starting to write columns highlighting Sparks businesses. Today was our first release of a blog, and if you go on Facebook or on our website at 39 North Downtown, you will see she is profiling Sparks Metal Crafters. They're at 1155 Watson Way, a very interesting company that supports veterans and some of the interesting things that they do. If you have any suggestions on businesses and businesses you run across that are interesting, let us know, because we would love to profile them and ask them questions. We are going to be part of repainting the S in Sparks with Councilman Donald Abbott coming up on May 20th at 9 a.m. at 2345 East Prater Way. We could also use donations for that. That would be helpful. We have a quarterly meeting. The last one was at Loca Tile, and I want to give a special thanks to Jeff Kronk, who came to talk to us. He is the Sparks Director of Finance for the City of Sparks and did a fantastic job updating us on the financial aspects of the city and answering our questions. And it was very helpful to us to really understand the ins and outs and the challenges that the city faces. Our next meeting is going to be July 11th at the Fountain House, and anyone who hasn't seen that project is pretty fantastic, and we're going to have our meeting there, and you can also tour the property if you want to come out. We also have a group called the Community Connection. We're going to have an event in September. Last year, we got together all of the service organizations from the City of Sparks to find out what they do and how do they contribute to the community, and it was a very interesting meeting. Can't believe the amount of time and effort that goes into putting really amazing things out into the community. This year, we're going to focus on what those things are and how clubs and community organizations can maybe collaborate on some of the things that they have in common. For instance, veterans, kids, books, variety of different things came up that they have in common, and how can we collaborate as an organizations. So we're going to have that in September, and we'll have more information on when that happens. And then finally, please join us on May 4th. We're going to help celebrate Jim Lillard Day down here at the Sparks Museum from 1:30 to 3:30. That's all I have today.
What's the date?
It's Mother's Day. It's this Sunday.
You said the 4th, so.
Did I say the 4th? Oh, did I say the 4th? Oh my. Okay, it's the 14th.
Corrected it.
Thank you for correcting me on that.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we had an email from Scott Pearson, and the city clerk will now read his public comment.
From Scott Pearson. With all the parks areas around in Sparks, I was wondering why there is not a community garden available for the citizens of the community. Would it be possible to create something like this? I would think this would build community, be a great addition, and fit right along with the family-oriented nature of Sparks. There seems to be a greater and greater emphasis on homegrown products, and I believe this would be a great venue to produce this, as well as good, wholesome family bonding. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the council. Number 5 is the approval of the agenda. Anybody wishing to pull anything, move it around? We're looking for a motion. Mr. Dare.
I move to approve the agenda as is.
For a second, Mr. Lawson. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, number 6.1, consideration of possible approval of the minutes of the regular Sparks City Council meeting of April 24th, 2017. Looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee?
I move to approve the minutes from our April 24th, 2017 meeting as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Donald Abbott? Second it. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Mr. Dare? It passes unanimously. Okay, number 7.1 is a proclamation. Is there somebody here from Reno? 1868 FC. Come on down, sir. How you doing? Very good. Okay, City of Sparks, Reno 1868 FC. Reno 1868 FC is an American professional soccer team based in Reno, Nevada, who made their debut in the United Soccer League in March 2017. Welcome to the Truckee Meadows, and we wish you many years of success. And it's signed by our Mayor, Gino Martini. Thank you. I'm going to give you this, and then we'd love to hear some words from you, okay? Yes, that'd be great.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for the wonderful proclamation. My name's Eric Edelstein. I'm the team president for Reno 1868, also the Reno Aces. So we cohabitating in Greater Nevada Field and work together on these two clubs. What I just wanted to first of all say thank you for the opportunity to come and visit with you while we make these presentations in front of the city of Reno. The reality is that our venue exists for all of northern Nevada and could not succeed without the support from your constituency. So just wanted to share in this presentation just some really highlights, and I'm not going to go through everything here, but just the idea that beyond the 71 baseball games, now we're adding 18 professional soccer games to Greater Nevada Field, as well as over 100 other events that are happening at that ballpark throughout the year. And that's not counting the ice rink that now happens every winter, the haunted house that happens in October. We are seeking expansion of our total occupancy to help lure some larger concerts. So there's a number of projects in the work, but the goal is to, in my mind, ballpark should be the community center. It should be a place that's all are welcome, and you don't have to be a fan of one sport or either sport. There should be something for everybody at the ballpark. So we're really excited about the future. If you haven't been out this year, we've just finished another $1.5 million in entertainment upgrades, including $1.1 million in new video boards that have really put our venue at the state of the industry. And we're just really excited about the future, and again appreciate all the support we get from the city of Sparks and all the folks that live here.
Thank you. You know, we wish you the best of luck, and we do have some questions from council members.
Please.
There.
I want to thank you for coming out. I had the opportunity to come down to one of their big openings and just brought my family down there. And as I did, I got to talk to Eric a little bit, and I don't know if you're in Sparks here and you like soccer and baseball. Everyone already knows about the baseball, but the soccer is an awesome thing, and it was a lot of fun. So it was something I just encourage our people to come down and support it. And thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. I will say, if you've never been to a professional soccer match, try it. Even if you think you're going to hate it, just try it. It's not for everybody. It's a little rowdier. It's a little more boisterous than baseball games and other sporting events. But it's a very different experience, and we do our best to make the venue, I guess, soccerized, if you will, so that it feels like you're in a soccer stadium.
Yeah, they had about 30 men down there with their shirts off screaming throughout. It was probably like 20 degrees, 30 degrees at one point. Yeah. So, yeah, it was kind of you definitely get some interesting crowd down there in some ways, but it was a lot of fun watching them, and it was definitely a lot of fun. It was an awesome thing.
And they have drums now.
Oh, they have drums
yes.
as well. Drums. And
yes.
So if you like to get all painted up and have fun, it was actually a lot of camaraderie, definitely. It was a lot of fun.
Mr. Abbott.
So 1868, how did you come up with that name?
So 1868 is the founding year of the city of Reno, and really the impetus for the founding of the city of Reno was railroad expansion, reaching the Truckee River. And so we took sort of a cue from a lot of Eastern European, some German clubs have used the founding year of their soccer team to name their team. we certainly weren't going to be called Reno 2017, but we felt like it would be a fun play to take that culture and sort of really embrace the history. And if you notice with our crest, you've got the mountains on the top, you've got the Truckee River in the bottom, really embracing the historical reasons for this part of the world being settled and enjoying that history.
Ms. Bybee.
And I just want to say that your facility is just, it really is a gem. I mean, and I love baseball. My dad has had season tickets, and he's 87. He and his 85-year-old friend, they go to the games, and actually they bought a ticket for me this year, so I'm going as often as I can. But it's just such, when the first season here, it was just such a great place to go for families, for singles, for seniors. It was such a community feel to it, and you're right there. I mean, the park, unlike going to a Giants game, which is a whole other experience, I mean, you're literally right there, and the caliber of ball, the team, and how well they've done. But I especially appreciate all the community things that you do. You have community groups that are there. We have City of Sparks Night. They've other organizations I've been involved with, opportunities, whether it's Little League teams or community nonprofits, to embrace and be part of the community. So I appreciate the things you do for the community and raising funds and providing a venue for the community to use, and hope you guys have a great season. And I haven't been to soccer, so I need to do that. I will
have to check that out. Thank you. We do try to. We have a number of nonprofit programs that we work with throughout the year, sports, not sports, trying to find ways. The lack of ability to pay for a ticket should never prohibit someone from experiencing sports. So we try to find as many programs as we can, so that all people, regardless of ability to pay, can enjoy this experience.
So I heard a story that you replaced the sod after every game, but we're just talking the infield area, right?
Correct. You can kind of see it on the cover that yes, it was just the infield. It's about 10,000 square feet of sod that comes up after each soccer match.
Players like that. Is it kind of loose?
You'd be surprised. It's a thick cut that actually stays pretty still, and they say compared to some of the sand traps and other places they have to go play, that it's actually pretty good. And it's a little bit of our home field advantage as well, because we know how to use it.
Well, thanks for coming down. Congratulations. I think you're going to have nothing but success over there, and the citizens are flocking to see you guys. So that's good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate the proclamation. Thank you for your time, and it's great to be here to visit with you. Thank you. Come down and see us.
Okay, the next proclamation we have, or the first proclamation we have, is for Older Americans Month, but I don't think that there's anybody here to receive this because there's nobody in the audience over 30.
Except you.
Except for me. Come on down. You got to play to the audience here. How are you? Good. Ed's going to read your proclamation for you.
Actually, Donald is.
Oh, Donald is.
Donald is wonderful.
That's right.
Our millennial. Yeah, our millennial. Whereas the city of Sparks includes older Americans who richly contribute to our community, and whereas we acknowledge that what it means to age has changed for the better, is committed to supporting older adults as they take charge of their health, explore new opportunities and activities, and focus on independence. And whereas the city of Sparks can provide opportunities to enrich the lives of individuals of all ages by involving older adults in the redefinition of aging in our community, promoting home and community-based services that support independent living, encourage older adults to speak up for themselves and others, and providing opportunities for older adults to share their experiences. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim May 2017 as Older Americans Month. I urge every resident to take time during this month to acknowledge older adults and the people who serve them as an influential and vital parts of our community. I'm sure we're going to ask you to say a couple words.
Thank you, Donald.
You're welcome.
That's beautiful.
Please say a few words.
Red light on is off.
Oh,
We're backwards here.
good, it's off again. Whichever way it works, it's off. No red light, so I'm good, loud. Donna Klontz from the City of Reno Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. Thank you all so much for the proclamation. The whole month of May is Older Americans Month, and this month, with a lot of input from a lot of seniors, a lot of volunteer hours, including Donald Abbott, one of your own members, we planned an activity, at least one activity every single day in May for our senior population to get out, learn something about what's going on in the community for them. You heard today from the Senior Law Project. They've got 2 special training programs during the month of May. We've got a few things happening in Sparks. One of them looks like already happened. At the Sparks Library, there was a preventing of elder financial abuse that was put on. Today we have this coming to City Council, and I'm hoping some of the seniors came to City Council to hear to see it. And I know Renell's back there, so I know at least one of your Sparks seniors is in the room. Later this afternoon, we've got the Sparks High School event that some of us are gonna come to as well. On May 11th at the Alf Sorensen Community Center, there's pickleball. If anybody wants to learn to play pickleball, that's going to be happening for all of the seniors. Sparks Museum on May 13th, a walking tour of the area and also to take a look at Sparks Museum at 11 o'clock in the morning. On May 16th, Senior Aquasize is happening at Alf Sorensen. The Mayor Challenge Bike Ride is in the book. Hopefully, how many of you are going to ride bikes, I hope, from Reno to Sparks? Ha ha! You got Donald out there again. North Valley's Library on May 24th, subsidized housing options, that big issue that we were talking about a little bit earlier about housing crisis. And then Paradise Park on May 26th, which is inside Reno, but a lot of seniors from Sparks go there as well, is an event they call Paradise Park Goes Bananas, and it's a lot of banana splits, and it's free. So please come out and join all the seniors for that. The week, about the middle of May, from May 18th to the 30th, we're doing the Stuff-A-Bus program again, and Sparks is participating. There'll be some barrels around the city of Sparks for folks to donate things that our neediest seniors need. We're working with the ACES and 1868 soccer folks as well. So at Greater Nevada Field on the 30th, all the barrels from all over town will come down to Greater Nevada Field, and there'll be a RTC bus there, and we're asking the whole community to come down for one last time and see if we can stuff that bus full of the things that our seniors need. So we thank the City of Sparks for joining us in that effort this year, and all the community folks that are working to make the lives of our seniors a lot better. So we appreciate the special attention that you're giving with this proclamation today, and welcome everybody to get one of our booklets. I hope there are a few still at City Hall, and we're going to get a few more printed. I don't even have one today because I just got back from Europe yesterday. Yay, there's one. We can wave it. So, and on the back of it, can I wave it in the air, is the Stuff-A-Bus information on the back of the thing. So if you don't have any more, we're going to get a few more printed. So thanks for bringing it today. And if any of you are collecting coupons for the raffle at the end of the month, I have them. So see me, and I'll give you 2 tickets for showing up at City of Sparks. So thank you all again, and happy Older Americans Month for May 2017.
Donna, pickleball. I've never seen anything go as crazy as that's gone. Everybody wants to play pickleball.
It's the fastest growing sport for people 50 and older. Those of you who've ever played tennis, you can't quite get there anymore. Pickleball is your game. So it's a smaller net, but it's still running around hitting the ball back and forth over the net. So.
Probably hears it all the
Lots
time
of
about
fun.
pickleball.
So we'll get Sparks. How many courts of pickleball are there in Sparks? Let's get more.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, 7.3 is a presentation and proclamation for James Lillard Day. Tina, are you going to come down and accept this?
My son Tim and I are.
Okay, come on down. Welcome.
All right, so I get to read this one for you. Proclamation, whereas James C. Lillard was born on August 27, 1927, in the state of Missouri, and moved to Sparks in 1935. He was educated at Robert Mitchell School, Sparks Junior High School, Sparks High School, and obtained a BA in Business Administration at Reno Business College. He served in the United States Navy during World War II. James married his high school sweetheart, Colleen Brown, and they had a son, Jimmy, and a daughter, Tina. And whereas James Lillard was very active in many community service programs and was elected to the office of mayor of the city of Sparks in June 1971 and again in June of 1975, serving until 1979. James had one phrase that he promoted throughout his political career: "I'll give you the best protection, recreation, and comfort for your tax dollar." And his philosophy was never make promises you can't keep. And whereas James Lillard and his council are credited with starting the redevelopment downtown and creating several parks and expanding police and fire protection and a leisure services department, all without a tax increase. And whereas James Lillard was also a Washoe County Commissioner from January of 1983 to May of 1991. Additionally, he served as the Vice Chairman on the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority and the Washoe Medical Center Board of Trustees. And whereas James C. Lillard Railroad Park was named in his honor and was dedicated by the Sparks Bicentennial Commission on July 4th, 1976, the park features a train display of a replica depot, a steam locomotive, and 3 Southern Pacific Railroad cars. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim Sunday, May 14, 2017, as Jim Lillard Day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon,
Welcome.
Council, City Manager. My name's Tim Layton, grandson of the late Jim Lillard and a native Sparks resident. I'll just make a quick statement on behalf of my family, but I'd like to thank you for the proclamation and for dedicating May 14th as Jim Lillard Day in the City of Sparks. My grandfather passed away 26 years ago on May 14th, 1991. Jim, my grandfather, served his community from 1971 to 79 as mayor at the City of Sparks, and he also served as Washoe County Commissioner from 1983 until his passing in 1991. It's also been a great honor that a park in our very own community on Victorian Square has been named the James C. Lillard Park, which occurred on July 4th, 1976. In creating the park, which was mandated by Congress in 1973 and the 53rd Legislature of the state of Nevada. The city also received national recognition by creating this unique bicentennial park, which was an awesome thing for the city. In closing, while I understand no one official is responsible for everything that occurs in this city or happens or changes or progression, but I do know that my grandfather enjoyed serving his community with wit, perseverance, and a high degree of integrity. I would also like to thank the Sparks Mayor, Gino Martini, City Manager, Steve Driscoll, Parks and Rec Director, Tracy Dominguez, Kelly Reese with the Sparks Museum Cultural Center, and all of you, the City Council members, for making this day possible for my family and my grandfather. Additionally, and I know it's already been said a couple times, but there's going to be a flag ceremony held at 1:30 May 14th at the James C. Lillard Railroad Park, and there'll be a reception to follow at the Sparks Museum. So anyway, thank you very much for the proclamation, the dedication of this May 14th.
Thanks for coming down. Tina, did you want to say anything?
Yes, I wanted also to thank everybody for this opportunity to be able to have this event for my father. I'm real excited. I loved your bike ride that you are having. I hope everybody could get a chance to come to the reception. Sparks High School and the Hall of Fame will be there also. There's a lot of Sparks memorabilia and some cupcakes, free flowers for the mothers since it's Mother's Day. And again, when you were talking about the bicycle ride, there's a lot of old photos and many of you will, know quite a few people in the photos and that. And there's a picture of my mom and dad over at Paradise Park riding their bicycles when he first became mayor. So it's just kind of fun. But thank you again for this opportunity, and hope to see you on May 14th.
Thank you. There's not a more deserving fellow than your grandfather and your father. So thank you very much. Great little park. If you haven't been down there, drop by and see it. There's some statues over there, and very nice, very nice. Okay, we'll move on to 7.4, which is the presentation and update of the federal legislative topics. Welcome, Kathy. Anya, you going to come down, or? Bennett, come on down and sit right behind him.
The royal we. Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and staff, I have the pleasure of introducing today Ms. Anya Graves. She's a partner with Cardinal Infrastructure, the city's federal lobbyist firm. Anya and her firm have been with the city over 13 years, and they've been an invaluable resource and help to the city. Also with Ms. Graves today is Bennett Resnick, who is the Manager of Government Relations for Cardinal Infrastructure. And with that, I'll leave you with Anya and Bennett to give you the update from the federal point of view.
Welcome, Anya.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Nice to be here, and nice to meet Councilman Abbott for the first time. I look forward to working with you. It's a pleasure to be here in Sparks and addressing the City Council about recent federal and legislative activities in Washington, D.C. Just this past Friday, President Trump signed the $1 trillion fiscal year 2017 spending bill, which funds the government through September 30th to the end of the fiscal year. The bill passed the House and Senate last Wednesday and Thursday with strong bipartisan support. While the 2017 spending bill rejected most of the Trump administration's proposals, it did include an additional $15 billion for the Department of Defense and $1.5 billion for border agents and technology, but no funding was included for a border wall. For the most part, domestic programs, funding for those remained the same or increased slightly. For example, the FEMA budget increased a little over last year at about $11 billion. The COPS program that the City of Sparks has applied for in the past was flat funded at $137 million. The EDA, Economic Development Administration, funding increased by $15 million. There's about $800 million that's to be provided for prevention and treatment of opioid abuse that may be accessible by your community. The Department of Labor's Veterans Employment Training Program received a slight increase as well. Most of the DOT programs were increased by about 5%, including $500 million for the Tiger program. That funded a project here, the 4th Street Parade Way project, which will probably go to construction later this year. So there'll be additional $500 million for that program. Homeless assistance grants received an additional $133 million. And the big CDBG program was flat funded at about $3 billion for the nation. If you have any questions about additional federal programs, I'm happy to get back to you with details on that. I expect the President's full FY18 budget to be released on May 22nd. However, that May date may slip. It's already slipped a couple of times already. Earlier today, I was reminded by Congressman Amodei, this morning he and Ron were speaking at the American Public Transportation Association conference over at GSR, and he also sits on the Appropriations Committee, that, well, probably every president from George Washington to now has proposed a budget. It's Congress that makes the decisions about funding federal agencies. That said, Congress will consider what the president proposes and is likely to start holding hearings on 2018 budget sometime this summer. However, the process is complicated further by consideration of the healthcare bill, which I suspect will go on here for several more weeks. Until they dispose of that, they're unlikely to consider any other legislation, including annual budgets. Also, I can add that because the administration is new, they will still be looking to fill around 1,000 appointments that will need to be, need to be nominated and confirmed by the Senate, and that process is also somewhat slow. So until people are in place to have substantive budget discussions, I suspect the entire appropriations process will slip or continue to be delayed. For example, the president has declared that tax reform and infrastructure are important to him, and unfortunately, Secretary Chow at USDOT and Secretary Mnuchin at Treasury are the only two confirmations at those organizations. So, you know, if you're going to consider tax legislation and an infrastructure bill, then in theory, you'll want to have more people involved in that. So I think dates will slip, even though initial efforts will be aggressive. Let's say, in any case, the city should consider any tax or infrastructure policy or project priorities they may have, and consider submitting those to both Congress and the administration. It's hard to know what a final initiative or bill might look like. But I think you want to be involved in that discussion. So we can, talk about that at another time, or I'm happy to hear your comments now. In addition to the change in administration, you all have a new senator in Washington. Senator Cortez Masto has been hard at work for a couple of months now and has almost completely staffed up. And we've been meeting with her office regularly. And while I don't think he's officially pulled a challenger yet, Senator Heller continues to appear on national lists of vulnerable seats. So I think that will be something you all will consider as we move toward an election in almost 2 years from now. But and then I understand that Congressman Amodei seems to have, I guess Sharon Engel has maybe entered that race, but I haven't heard of any others, so we'll be watching that as well. I met briefly with Senator Heller last night and Congressman Amodei this morning, and we're in regular contact with Senator Cortez Masto's office, and they are very interested in hearing from you all on Washoe County land spill, flood control, the appropriations process, and any assistance they can offer you all on grants. So, keep me posted on that as well. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, Ron? Comments? Bennett, did you want to say anything, or?
Well, I joined Carl Infrastructure in November, and I'm looking forward to serving the city of Sparks.
Thank you. Well, Ani's been doing it for a long time now, and doing a good job also. I had a question, and of course, it's senior month, so I forgot what it was. So, thank you. We were lucky to have Senator Heller and Congressman Amodei speak at the conference today. So that conference has brought about 700 people here.
More, I think it's, if you include the bus drivers, it's 1,200.
When she says they include the bus drivers, because they have a bus rodeo. They've had an event Saturday, I believe.
Yeah.
And then the other one is today or tomorrow?
Well, the awards banquet for the bus rodeo is tonight, where they'll award sort of bus drivers and maintenance groups from around the nation.
It's a big deal for them too. They bring in teams, maintenance teams, and
over in the parking lot at GSR, with the cones and course and like
I
a
gave
pit
the pitch
stop
today for
almost.
Sparks to spend their money in Sparks, and we'll see how that works out. So, good stuff. Thank you for your report. Thank you. When are you heading back?
Thursday morning.
Thanks, Bennett. Thanks, Anya. Okay, we're going to move on to consent items. Anybody want to pull an item or looking for a motion? Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve consent items 8.1 through 8.6.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Come on. There we go. Passes unanimously. Thank you. General business 9.1, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of payment of $10,000 donation to keep Truckee Meadows beautiful. Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, members of the council, Steve Driscoll, City Manager for the record. Part of your budget process looks at donations and contributions to other organizations outside the city. And so during that process, you develop a list that you approve in your final budget. And it is your policy that when it comes time for those donations or payments to come back to you for your final approval, this would be time and place to consider and possibly approve a $10,000 donation to keep Truckee Meadows beautiful. This group does do a couple of work cleanups in the city during the year. We just had one last weekend, did some major cleanup work. So with that, I'm prepared to answer questions.
Any questions or comments? Steve, we've done this how many years now?
As long as I can remember.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
How much did we give them last year?
Same amount. During the
Push them
recession,
for a while?
we did during the recession, we reduced it down into the 6,000 range. And last year, this council brought it back up to the 10,000, which it was pre-recession.
Mr. Derrick.
Move to approve. I move to approve the payment of $10,000 to keep Truckee Meadows beautiful.
Mr. Abbott.
Can I second it and add a comment?
Sure. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion, Mr. Abbott.
I was there Saturday helping out at Keep TNB, and I was at Rock Park, and we had probably about 20 people, 4 hours, that's 80 hours. They do a great job. It was great to see the show. And it wasn't just at Rock. We did Rock, Para, and Wild Creek, which helps our city staff. So I'm happy that we're doing this. I think it's a well invested money. Yep.
Mr. Derrick.
Can I just say on that too, something that we're going to continue to introduce and use the term community days more and more, where we have days where our city, anybody in the city of Sparks or whoever else wants to come, but areas in the city of Sparks that actually have need, where we're going to team up with other people and other people in the city to go out and do things like Donald talked about this last weekend. And so we're working diligently with our Parks and Rec to find the best places that need us the most. So if you are out there and you're interested, so it's something important.
Any other comments or? Okay. Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. 9.2, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a forensic support services agreement with the county. Chief, come on down. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. Brian Allen, Chief of Police for the record. Back in December, we brought a similar item to you when we had already previously paid this bill prior to getting authorization, and I think I indicated that would never happen again. So here we are together talking about the same issue back then, but this time for fiscal year 18, which starts July 1st. So the forensic contract with the Washington County Sheriff's Office is for full services in the forensic laboratory to include all of the testing materials, including alcohol, drugs, and call-out services that we would need during the next fiscal year. This includes DNA, toxicology, controlled substances, firearms, trace evidence analysis, breath alcohol systems. Historically, we have increased this account by approximately $35,000 a year over the last about 10 years to get to the point that we are today. Initially, when I received the first bill from the Washington County Sheriff's Office, our estimated bill would have been $738,636. In negotiations with the Washington County Sheriff, we were able to get the final price as you have before you today. So if you have any questions, I will answer them.
Questions or comments? Mr. Lawson.
Did we get an increase this year, Chief?
Yes, this year we negotiated, rather than a $35,000 increase, we increased it by $50,000. Historically, we were able to do 2-year contracts at the $35,000 rate. We have a new sheriff which had different thought processes in the negotiation process. So he is only comfortable doing one-year contracts. His initial proposal was to charge us the full amount of $738,000 plus dollars.
And every year it's about that much, isn't it? They try to charge us.
Roughly, and we've tried to put a plan together to try to get up to paying full service, but obviously with the budgets in place, we could not.
Maybe
absorb
he's
another
not going to be sheriff for
$300,000.
more, he's gone in 18, so maybe that's why he didn't want to.
There would be one more year under his, one more contract to negotiate while he is still sheriff. And then there will be a new sheriff after that, which could change this whole process once again.
Mr. Dare.
And as a now, obviously says new sheriff coming, but we probably should anticipate that if we don't have the large conversation of who is truly responsible for all of the things we spoke about in that setting. So at some point, we're probably going to need to have that conversation with Washoe, with that whole thing of is this our responsibility? I just want to officially say that I think that's a conversation that's coming down the way and needs to be had at some point.
Yeah, the sheriff indicated he would be more inclined to not negotiate next year and charge the full amount. That is correct.
Okay. Ms. Bybee.
I appreciate your negotiating skills, especially in the time of economic tight budgets right now. So I appreciate that. Look forward to possibility of moving into the future with it. And obviously, the kind of work that they're doing is critical to solving cases, to prosecuting, to, we need these services. So I appreciate that we have worked out this contract, and we'll be supporting the motion. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Looking for a motion? Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve the Forensic Support Services Agreement with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office and ratify the $435,500 expenditure for those services.
Mr. Abbott. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item is 9.3, I believe, consideration, discussion, and possible approval to reject all bids for the municipal court security entrance remodel project due to insufficient fundings. Brian, how are you?
Good, good. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. For the record, my name's Brian Kaysen, Capital Projects Manager for the City of Sparks. I'm here today to request approval, of course, to reject all bids for the publicly bid municipal court security entrance remodel project. 6 bids were received and opened on March 29, 2017, ranging in price from $269,000 up to $384,000, with an engineer's estimate coming in approximately at $195,000. Staff reviewed the bids, researched why the bids came in high, and discussed this information with the municipal court staff. We found that it appears for remodel work of this size, there are several reasons for the large overage, some of which include a shortage of skilled labor in the area, a significant amount of construction occurring in the area, the time of year that we bid the project, and the size of the project. It is a relatively small project with more lucrative work available for building construction. In addition, building contractors have busy schedules for the foreseeable future. All this information helped us determine whether to recommend award or rejection of the bids, and ultimately staff is recommending the rejection of all bids due to insufficient funding. We will reassess the project to determine what the next steps would be if rejection of all bids is approved by council. With that being the end of my presentation, I will answer any questions you may have.
Questions or comments? Ms. Bybee.
So Brian, as you reevaluate the project, will you be making changes to the project, or just trying to get it within that budget, or are we rolling into a second budget cycle so we would have the full money? I mean, what are the plans?
Essentially, we'll look at basically some value engineering, look at kind of some of the items that maybe did tip the scales on the project. We'll look at bidding it at a different time of year, kind of talk to contractors around town, kind of see maybe it's more of a winter project that they can fill in with on their schedules, and just reevaluate the project and see where we can go from there. We should be able to get that within budget and ultimately get the project completed to make everybody happy over at the Muni Court and make it easier accessibility in there and improve the security in that building, which was the whole reason for the project in the first place.
Mr. Driscoll.
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, members of the council. I did have a meeting with the administrative judge and the court administrator today. This was part of the topic of conversation. The court building itself, it has not only the wear and tear that we work very hard to try to keep up, but there are some technical operational needs that need to be addressed in the near future. This was one of those projects. So the court is in a discussion with myself. I will be sitting down with Mr. Kaysen, which he's not aware of this because it happened just before lunch, just to kind of talk about this project itself and some of the safety components that we're concerned about and whether or not there may be some other things that we need to do and think about when that should be properly staged or staged at all based on some other potential options. So this one's going to be a little fluid for a moment. We are going to take a hard look at the safety issues because the court, as you can appreciate, is an environment that must be safe for the employees, the judges, and the people that are using the court. So I will be kind of working with Mr. Kaysen and other members of Community Services on some of the things that the judge and I spoke with today. Thank you.
I would agree. I'd agree that you're throwing out the bids because it doesn't seem to me that that's very, we're not being good stewards when we're going to pay a lot more money just because they can't get the people there to do it or they have better jobs. But security is number one for the courthouse, obviously. So, Mr. Dare.
I move to reject all bids for the municipal court security entrance remodel project.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you.
9.4, consideration, discussion, and potential direction regarding a proposal from Tahoe Reno Industrial General Improvement District for use of reclaimed water from the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. Mr. Kreutz.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Smith and members of the City Council. For the record, Neil Kreutz, Assistant City Manager, here today with a discussion that's been a hot topic on and off over the years at Tumworth. Members of the council will recall many times over the last few years at your monthly updates from the Community Services Department, they've spoken to you about the operations at Tumworth, the need to try and grow the effluent reuse program, and as much as every pound of nitrogen that we don't put back in the river is a pound that doesn't count against our permit. Going back to or reminding you that in 2013, Tumworth did in fact violate its total maximum daily discharge number into the Truckee River. We since have gotten process very much under control and are working very well, but that does point to the need to do what we can to manage the amount of nutrients that we return to the Truckee River. Fast forwarding to the spring of 2016, or just a little over a year ago, we did receive, as your staff, direction from the City Council to pursue perhaps alternate uses for that reclaimed water. I wanted us to look into a couple of areas in particular. The first was the potential of indirect potable reuse, or essentially cleaning up the water to an elevated standard that would allow us to put it into the ground to be pumped back out someday in the future for domestic use. We've been working on that with a number of people across the community and the state. And then you also were interested in perhaps pursuing some additional industrial uses, acknowledging that historically we've watered the grass at parks as a way to use up that water. It's nitrogen laden, so it's got fertilizer built right in. And also we've in conjunction with our partners at Tumworth, the City of Reno, a lot of effluent water has gone on to the University Farm out there to help them grow crops. But we've looked at additional uses for industrial water. Process control, cooling, could be a number of things. In terms of the indirect potable reuse, we have worked as part of a group at the state level, and in December of last year, Nevada Administrative Code was updated to allow for IPR, if you will, indirect potable reuse. It established a new very high class of treated effluent that could be put into the ground. So that set the regulatory framework and really kicked the community off on what's probably going to be a multi-year process that's going to involve a number of pilot tests, looking at the viability of some of the ground around here to take some of that water. It's going to involve the university. The university is actually in the process of setting up a water campus and looking at a whole new program up there, and they want us to be a partner in that with them. But we're looking at a 3-year setup process with the university before we're going to look at additional technologies and look at the potential for doing a pilot project. So while we've made as a community a lot of progress in terms of indirect potable reuse, so if we consider the other alternative that you've asked us to chase, and that being the increased industrial use, that lines up pretty well with a proposal that we received just about a month ago from the Tahoe Reno Industrial General Improvement District, TRIGID, and it's a local government, allowed under state law, that was set up to handle the sewer and the water provision for the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. As you all know, it's a gigantic industrial center that has lots of needs for water, from cooling to various process issues. And they've got a system out there, but they are looking for additional uses of water, and they like to very much summarize it, the idea of the environmental benefit that could come from using potentially reclaimed or sewer effluent water in some of their processes or in some of their cooling. So essentially they brought us a proposal. So I'm here today, in short, with that proposal, and what we're asking for as your staff is that you give the city manager direction to enter into negotiations with TRIGID and the many other partners who it's going to take, including the City of Reno, the Truckee Meadows Water Authority, the Governor's Office on Economic Development, to come up with a deal that would allow us to, or allow you to consider, essentially a deal that would provide effluent to the TRIGID for their use in those industrial facilities out there. So the terms of the proposal that we received from the GID are relatively simple. At least the concept is, and the concept is that they would construct, they being the industrial users out there and the GID and potentially with some state funds, construct a system of pipes and pumps that would pick up the water at our outlet at Tumwater. We drop it in Steamboat Creek, runs into the Truckee River, and down the river it goes. What they're proposing is, at their cost, on their nickel, with all of their effort, they would hook up to our system. We would then be able to send a certain volume of water out to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. They would be responsible for construction, operation, maintenance, any easements that need to be achieved to get that line constructed. They're even going so far to bring replacement water rights to the table as a large portion of what they're asking for. They're asking for a minimum of 4,000 acre-feet on an annual basis. And so the deal breaks down in terms of those water rights, where TRIGID already has 1,500 acre-feet of Truckee River water rights that they are proposing to use as replacement for this effluent that they are asking us to provide them. The state of Nevada, through its Department of Transportation, owns somewhere between 1,500 and 2,200 acre-feet of water rights. And the Governor's Office on Economic Development is committed to perfecting those rights, and to the extent possible, we would be able to use those rights as part of the replacement water here. And then additionally, on top of that, our partners at Tumwa, and through the operation, the Truckee River Operating Agreement, have what we'll term loosely as community resources water. And so they are offering up, as part of this deal, somewhere between 300 and 1,000 acre-feet of water, depending on how much comes out of that NDOT water. Really what we're trying to get to is 4,000 acre-feet of water rights that they, on the other side of the deal, if you will, would bring to the table to replace what we would then provide them. I've already covered that they would construct the line. They would want the water on a year-round basis. Right now, you'll recall that our effluent program essentially runs during the summer months. The pumps were actually just turned on at the UNR Farms, I believe, early last week, and they'll run depending on what the weather does out into October. But this afforded me a little bit of a diversion here. You might recall that in terms of sanitary sewer water treatment, it is the winter months where we struggle the greatest. We use a series of biological processes to essentially strip the nitrogen out of the water, so we've got bugs that consume it. And the bugs are nice and happy in the summertime when it's warm, and they do a really good job of chewing up the nitrogen. It's in the winter months, when it's cold outside, they slow down just like we do, and so it's more of a struggle for us to meet our permit requirements in the wintertime. So by lining up the opportunity for us to have a year-round user, that's going to just gives us the opportunity for more efficient nitrogen removal going forward. Any deal that we get into would require that the treated effluent that was diverted to TRI-GID be beneficially used in an approved manner. And that's a long way of saying that none of that water can find its way back to the Truckee River. It all would have to be consumed. Otherwise, if the water's going to go back to the Truckee River, it just takes a kind of a roundabout way to get there. We still get charged the nitrogen, and that doesn't benefit us. So that they've got to use it up in their processing, whether it's processing or cooling. They've also offered in their proposal that any of the 4,000 acre feet that they do not use, that maybe in the early years when we're still ramping the program up, that the cities would be able to use beneficially for whatever reasons we want to use. So there's a good deal point on our end. They are asking us, essentially in exchange for their bringing the water forward and bringing the system to hook up, that we would commit to maintaining Tumwharf and its facilities to supply the treated effluent, essentially meeting what we do today, and that's the Category B effluent as defined per state law. So they would ask us to commit to continuing to maintain that level of treatment. We've offered them samples, they've tested it, we've given them all sorts of test results on our own, so they have a good idea of what's in the water besides the hydrogen and the oxygen, and they know what they can handle. So they want to make sure that we're committed to that same level of treatment. It would be a rather costly project, and it would be on their end. In the staff report, you'll note in terms of concept level cost, they're considering about $5 million worth of right-of-way that they would need to acquire. Pipeline construction itself in the order of $20 million. An additional $31 million of upgrades out in the Tri-Center area itself to help deliver this water. And then just about $500,000 inside of Washoe County, essentially from where we dump it into Steamboat Creek to the county line, which is just several hundred yards downstream of Tumwharf. And then to help perfect those water rights, about $250,000 worth of effort there. So it's no small feat they are proposing to invest in. The reason for the timing is that the Governor's Office on Economic Development has access to some state bond financing, that can help put the money on the table to make this deal go forward. But GOED does need applications for those bonds to be submitted before the end of June of this year. And Tri-Center and the Tri-Center GID are looking for some sort of initial indication, and that's what we're asking for here today, that yes, we are interested in a deal. So that's what's driving the timing of us being here today. One of the big questions that comes up is how much would this water cost? Certainly nobody wants to pay anything more than they have to, and certainly we have not reached any kind of deal at this point. We're very early in these conversations. But I would characterize the state of our conversations in two parts. The first one is much easier, and that is, we're going to, if we do this, if you give us this approval, we go forward, a line gets constructed, and we flip the switch on running our effluent pumps to pump water into that line. There's going to be some additional electrical use. The pumps are going to have to work a little bit harder than what they're doing now. So we're going to experience some additional operating costs, some additional maintenance costs that go with us. So in concept, we have agreement that Tumwharf will need to be made whole for those extra costs. The second part, and the much bigger question, is how much should we charge them for the water? What are they willing to pay? And that's the question that we don't have have answered. Conversations that we have had to date have been around the point that the TRI-GID is going to be looking at making bond payments for about 15 years or so to, to pay off that construction loan, if you will, and that they would like to try and arrange for the start of payments, should there be any, to be later in the process. So that I'm filling you in on that just so that you kind of know the tenor of the discussions. I do want to reiterate, nothing has been agreed to. Conceptually, we understand we're going to have an increased operational and maintenance cost at Tumwharf. That would be built in, but any additional payment costs would certainly come with much greater detail and be part of any deal that we bring forward. So what's the benefit to the city of Sparks and more broadly to the city of Reno, because they're our partner in Tumwharf. And I hit on it early in my comments with that every pound of nitrogen that we don't put back in the river with our effluent is a pound that doesn't count against our permit. And you're all very well aware that we operate under some very stringent requirements in terms of total maximum daily load, or TMDL, as the engineers like to use in their world of acronyms. And the important ones are nitrogen. That's the one we talk to you the most frequently about. We also talk about phosphorus, and then we talk about total dissolved solids, or essentially the salts that are in the water. And so additional water that we can divert is water that's not going into the river that doesn't count against any of those permit criteria. Because I'm an analytical type, or in the world of emergenetics, I'm a blue-yellow. I like to look at numbers and to help me put things into context. So we went through an exercise, or just a quick analysis, that assumed that this system was in place, and we were diverting an additional 4,000 acre-feet of effluent. What would our results have looked like in 2013 when we violated? And the long and the short of it is we wouldn't have violated our permit, not even close. Our permit level is an average of 500 pounds per day total nitrogen into the river. We put in an average of 535 in 2013 and violated. Whereas if this project had been in place and we were diverting that 4,000 acre feet, we would have had a number in the low 450s. So we would have been well aware. And I point that out to you because I think that puts the finest point on, at least for a numbers guy like me, that says this proposal that's in front of us is the equivalent of a plant expansion. Okay, I'll say that again. This proposal in front of us, that 4,000 acre feet that wouldn't go back in the river, is just that much more nitrogen, 60 to 80 pounds, depending on how you look at our last 4 years, of nitrogen that doesn't go back in the river. So that's equivalent of us building another whiz-bang widget out there that would remove an additional 60 to 80 pounds of nitrogen a year. So there's a cost, at the very least, a cost deferment, if not a long-term cost savings, that is on the table for us to consider as we ask you to consider whether or not you want to move into more formal negotiations through your manager. That, as we've been looking at expansion opportunities and alternatives for Tumwharf over the last few years, we've done some conceptual work, and this proposal would defer expansion of Tumwharf. The three alternatives that we looked at capital cost ranging between $30 million and $250 million. This, at the very least, would defer that and move it down the road several years. I'm comfortable in pointing out that would come well after the 20-year consensus forecast that we're currently looking at now, and the one that we spoke to you about in the sewer workshop that we did a couple of months ago. It would also help stabilize the water rights market on the Truckee River. Right now, as development is winding up, and we'll call it the Tesla effect or the switch effect, as our people become more and more interested in our community and they're wanting to come here, we are seeing the development community now trying to buy up water rights. So we've got some new competition out there. Right now, certainly the folks out in Tri-Center are actively looking for Truckee River water rights. Whereas if we can come to some sort of deal here, that would help settle the water rights market down. And I know that Tumwharf would find that incredibly beneficial. We certainly don't want to find ourselves in a situation. I recall this very clearly back in the run-up that led to the Great Recession, that there was at one point in time that there was a developer who was who was offering to purchase water rights at $50,000 an acre foot, just in the name of I want to scoop up as much as I can. And that's not healthy for any market to, to run off in that direction. And a move like this would provide the industrial users out there with a predictable, constant, if they want it constantly, source of water. And it would provide us, with another outlet. I've already spoken also to the environmental benefit. It's water that gets to stay in the river. That's fundamental to the whole effluent program that we have. Is the less water that people are pulling out of river to irrigate, that's water that gets to stay in the river versus water that we've already taken out. We've used it beneficially. We've treated it. Let's use it beneficially again. So certainly there's some good benefits to be had there. You'll recall that as I spoke to the breakdown of the 4,000 acre feet of water, Tumwa is kind of in the game, if you will, for between 300 and 1,000 acre feet. Conceptually, where we are is that any benefit of the water rights overages, let's say that NDOT is able to find more than 1,500, that benefit would go to Tumwa, so we would use less of the community resource of the water. Now, in as much as we are operating, we are talking about operating in the Truckee River, one of the most heavily regulated rivers in the United States, as we see in our treatment standards, and also one that's subject to the Truckee River Operating Agreement that had decades of lawsuits that led us to that operation. If you choose to go forward with this proposal, it would come back to you in probably multiple agreements. And the first one would outline the deal points between the city, it'd be the two cities and TRIGID, but there's also going to be a series, or at least one operating agreement that helps us determine how and when that water is going to get used, where the water rights count, whose water rights come before others. That's going to involve a great number of agencies, and ultimately will have to be blessed by the federal water master. The person or the agency charged with treating the Truckee River as though it was an accounting. You have water in, you have an order in which that water is owed to people, and then you measure where it went. We have a water master who has an ideal situation of being able to manage that river on a daily basis, so that he can figure out what one user used on a Wednesday and determine what that user then is entitled to on a Friday, and operate it on a day-to-day basis. Whereas historically, it's been operated more on a seasonal basis, and it was that seasonal basis that led to the 6,700 acre feet of water rights that the city was approved for by the state engineer going back a couple of decades ago. So to summarize that, it's a very complex system. So while in concept this is a very simple proposal, hi, we want to use your water, we want to build a pipe right up to the end of your building and hook on. And you provide the water, we'll talk about what you're going to pay. When you get into the details are numerous, and it's like a dragon with 400 heads. It's going to take a lot of work. Fortunately, you have a lot of smart people in this community on both sides of this deal, and in many public agencies, that all have things that they need to do to serve their agency, to serve the community. And we're also, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that one of the things we're trying to do with this, or one of the potential benefits, is economic development. That certainly is huge. We want to be responsible to our environment. We want to be able to grow as a community, and I think the concept that we're laying in front of you today provides a framework to do that for us. So that's really the end of my comments today. Before we go to questions, we do have some representatives of other folks from the other entities here, and if it's okay with you, Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to invite them up.
We do have some questions. Let's go to those questions, okay, and we'll bring them down, okay? Yes.
All right, then.
Would you like to, okay. Mr. Hill, who wants to come down? Anybody? Come on down. Questions? Anybody wishing to speak?
First up, I'd like to invite Bob Sater down. He represents the Tahoe-Reno Industrial General Improvement District, essentially the organization that brought us the proposal. And then we'll follow him up with Paul Taggart, who is a representative of Switch. Okay. And we also have, I saw Mark Corey and John Hamill from Milwaukee today. And we also, of course, got the city staff. It's been involved so far. So hopefully we can improve this.
I think you're pushing Pushing it too far here. Come on down, Bob.
Officer of the TRI General Improvement District, the author of the proposal before you today. My right here is Paul Taggart. Paul is a representative of Switch, the massive data center that is out of TRI and currently in operation and developing more in industrial space. We are here to discuss the proposal in front of you. I find that Neil Kreutz has very succinctly described the proposal, very balanced fashion. I'd like to thank Neil and Andy Hummel and Mr. Martini. We've spent quite a bit of time discussing with them what's possible for Tumwharf to do and what's feasible and what parts of a proposal we could make to you might be of interest and how we can make this a win-win for everybody. And they've been very helpful, very cooperative, very clear that they're not making any commitments to us, that that's your decision to make, but at the same time helping us refine the proposal so it's clear, I think, and helpful for you in your consideration. So Tahoe Reno, or actually TRI, General Improvement District is the formal name. We are a subdivision of the state of Nevada. We have elected trustees. We operate the water and sewer system out at Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. The water and sewer system consists of provision of potable water by groundwater sources, of which we have quite a large amount, and sewer system for all the industrial properties that we serve. Currently, we have about 170 accounts and not that many industrial properties, but about 2,000 acres worth of developed industrial properties on the water and sewer system. So it's a small but robust system that is state-of-the-art. It's all built since 2000. And when the system was built, it was anticipated that what I call process water, which is what Neil has explained is water for industrial uses, cooling, other uses, washing, in industrial plants. Process water was considered by the master developer and by the GID to be something that's going to be needed at some point. So all of the roads that have been built since 2000 when sales commenced have purple pipe in the ground, reclaimed pipe. So the park is plumbed now for our customers to use processed water. What happened to us about 5 years ago and really coming on heavy in 2014 is a new kind of potential purchaser came to us and started discussing the possibility of moving into northern Nevada, bringing economic development. These users need large amounts of processed water. They're users like Tesla and Switch, and recently an announcement for Google. These kinds of users are in manufacturing, they're in data centers, they have a much higher grade of employee in terms of salary. They bring robust economic development to northern Nevada, and we're delighted that we've had great success in luring these big industrial users to the business park. What we see now is the need for the GID and the master developer, Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, to build the water system to supply processed water to these users. As you see in Mr. Kreutz's staff report, the price tag for that, just for the on-site improvements that we will be building, is about $31 million. The pipeline that you are considering is about $25 million. And this has to be, we're hoping for it to be partially financed by bonds, but a lot of it, the remainder of it, will be paid for by TRI, by Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the master developer, and by Switch and by other users, customers, who will use processed water. So the GID itself has no debt. We won't have any debt. We will, all of our facilities are built and dedicated by the master developer. Like when you have Subdivision Street out in Sparks, that's built and dedicated by the subdivider. And that's the same way we've done it for all the water and sewer system. So we're in a very good position, I think, to operate the system. We're poised to do it. I want Mr. Teichert to be able to elaborate, but what this pipeline represents, besides an environmentally friendly way to use this water and a better way for water quality in the Truckee River, it's the opportunity for us to bring in future economic development of the caliber of the Teslas and the Switches and the Googles to use this water. This water will provide us a window in the future for providing these types of customers, economic development, as well as the ability of firms like Switch to use the water. So my primary purpose is to answer questions, join the discussion. If it's all right, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Taggart.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. My name is Paul Taggart. I'm an attorney from Taggart in Carson City. I've been hired by Switch to work on specifically the water issues. One of the areas that I practice in is water law, and I've been doing it for about 20 years. And as you know, the Truckee River keeps us busy with water right issues. Switch is a major Nevada corporation. Its size is 1 million square feet so far in the TRI Industrial Center. It has plans to build 7 million square feet. It is a data center, which means it houses the cloud. Folks come in the rights to use the interior space of the Switch centers, and that's where the cloud is housed in the form of servers. It's an amazing technology that has been developed in Las Vegas and has moved up here. We have a loop between San Francisco and LA and Vegas and Reno now, which is an incredible technology loop. The same technology is being used now in other states and in other countries by Switch. One of Switch's ethics is environmental sustainability. And they recently received an A rating from Greenpeace, which is a significant achievement. They were the only company to receive an A rating in all categories involving environmental sustainability. One of the slogans that I hear from the folks at Switch is that data will be running the planet. Let's make sure data doesn't ruin the planet. And so everything that the Chairman Rob Roy wants to do is to use renewable resources as much as possible and to use recycled water for cooling. And that's where this project really comes up, is it makes a lot more sense from an environmental standpoint for this recycled water to be used for cooling at the Switch facility. So that is the main focus of Switch's involvement. But as, and I won't go into a whole lot more because you've heard a lot of the details already. I think Mr. Kreutz did a great job of explaining the benefits to all the parties. I really think, I never quite understood what they meant by the sum is greater than the parts. But here I think it really is. I think that everyone has a resource or a need that are being married, and there's a series of benefits that each party is receiving. And just to name a few is that the Tumwater facility can avoid the cost of upgrades, as you heard talked about. Additional water will be put into the bucket, if you will, from the state. We can maintain Truckee River water rights in the river and use instead the recycled water at Switch and at TRI. So otherwise, what we would have used as main water rights can stay under the management of Tumwa. We can take advantage of state bond financing. As I mentioned, there's environmental benefits both to the cooling of industrial, but also to have less discharge into the Truckee River. And so those are some of the benefits that come from it. We do have a schedule, and that's why we're here now. We'll be coming back to you with a preliminary agreement if you ask staff to go the route that we're asking you to. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
What I think I'll do is call down anybody else who wants to speak, and if council members want to ask you questions, just get you back up. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak at this time? Mark, do you have any input? Sure. Come on down, both of you. You can come down too, John.
For the record, Mark Forey, General Manager of Truckee Meadows Water Authority.
And John Enlow, I'm Director of Natural Resources for Tumwa.
So you heard about the community resources. Tumwa has a lot of ideas about how we can accomplish that. You will hear more about that in a couple of weeks at the Tumwa board meeting. We are preparing a staff report at this time, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Enlow for any further comments.
I think you've heard a lot. I'll just, we'll be available to answer questions if you have any.
That's it? Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Neil, do you know anybody else? Okay, come back up, Neil, and we'll get some questions asked you. Mr. Lawson.
Sounds too good to be true, Neil. Why would you spend $57 million for used water? I mean, it sounds too good to be true.
They're wanting the water.
If I'm negotiating this deal, what's wrong? There's something missing that I'm missing in this whole deal.
Let me see if I can address that. First of all, Tahoe or TRI General Improvement District already has about 6,000 acre feet of water rights for the processed water system. We're committing with this proposal to take 1,500 of it, leave it in the Truckee River for the benefit of this proposal you're listening to today. What we found is that our users, such as Switch and Tesla, are eager to have this water, and anywhere they go in the country, they face the same issue of getting these massive amounts of water for their plant. It's the cheapest technology is water cooling and use of water for these industrial processes. So we're competing when we address the purchase of these large campuses in the park with regional and national sites. And water is very expensive or it's non-existent in those sites. And it turns out it's more expensive than it will be here. And so the answer to your question is this is cost effective for our customers to use this water and to pay for this water. And that's the reason we're providing it. And that's the reason that Northern Nevada is benefiting from these kinds of industrial properties developing here.
Much of your 6,000 acre feet are in the removal of the high water in the Truckee? I don't remember the exact number there. You can't pull out water when we're in a drought, which we happen to be through about a 6-year drought where you wouldn't have been able to pull any water. How much of that are you counting into your 6,000 acre feet?
We own about 3,000 acre feet of Truckee River rights. Where you're going with this
you're
question?
stabilizing your water supply. Because during the drought, you're not going to be able to pull that 3,000 acres out.
During drought years, we'll be on restriction, and a portion of that water would not be available to us. But we have some storage facilities on site we're developing, so we could take winter diversions just like we can from Tumwharf and better manage that water, Truckee River water. As you know, most of the big users of Truckee River water are irrigators. They need it in the summer, whether it's for lawns or crops. We need it all year round, and we can store part of it. So those Truckee River rights we have can be stretched out in drought years by proper management.
I don't know if this is the case or not, but I understand that you'd want this water for free for 15 years or free forever?
Well, we haven't discussed, we haven't made any concrete proposals on the question of paying the cities for this water. We've kind of, and Neil has mentioned some discussions we've had about the possibility of deferring payments until the bonds are paid for. The bottom line is that since the GID is a subdivision of the state of Nevada, we don't make a profit. We pass through all of our costs to our customers. And so whatever ends up being a negotiated price that you can consider is going to have to be paid by our customers.
So in this negotiation then, what's the city of Sparks, the city of Reno's ability that you guys don't live up to your half of the, can we shut the water off?
Well, that would be in the terms of a formal agreement. I suppose I'll be discussing that with Mr. Adams.
You can see where my concerns come, because I don't want to tie the next city councils, both of them, because we'll all be long gone by then, at the end of 15 years, thanks to term limits. So there won't be anybody sitting around here to remind us what we were talking about today, unless I'm still alive, and I'll be down here to, obviously, to share it as public comment. But you see what that's a big concern for me, that this deal is so wide open. There's so many loopholes. There's so many things that can go wrong, and there's so many moving parts at this point that I mean, I think it's worth investigating. But to come back with, did I understand correct? We got to have an agreement by June?
Well, we would hope so.
Yeah, so I couldn't investigate everything that had to be happening by June. You guys must have a team of people. I mean, the REMA paper that I'm going to ask for has got to be hundreds and thousands of pages long just to understand everything. Because there's so many things. What happens if NDOT decides to take away their water? Or Tumwa, they get a new board and they decide, guess what? We need those community services. Is all this under contract? Is all this going to be in perpetuity? Is it going to be for 15 years? What are we, there's a lot to talk about here. And if we're going to make a deal by June, I'm a little leery of that. I'm not a little, I'm a lot leery of that.
This would be a contract binding on all parties. It's a two-phase, we see it as a two-phase process. First is a formal agreement with the City of Reno and the City of Sparks and TRI-GID. That is an agreement to supply the water, commitment on our side to build all facilities, keep you free of expenses for supplying this water to the GID. We'd like to see that as a long-term commitment. It's a commitment that can be enforceable by both parties. In the water business and in the sewer business, long-term commitments for facilities are standard and are enforceable. And so if somebody breaches, you first asked if TRI-GID breached the agreement. You have a list of remedies that you could take for that. You want to get that water out of the river. So cutting off the water probably is like cutting off the nose on your face.
We're also a desert. And I've grown up in this state and know that the old saying is whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. So, and it took 28 years to do a TROA agreement. And we want to do this by June? You just understand my skepticism here, I hope. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Garrett.
I was just going to say, and for the record, Paul Taggart, that the points that you're making now, we're going to take into account as we go forward, because we have to come back quickly and have those points ironed out. And yeah, it's a tall task, so let's hope we get here and surprise you.
Sorry. And this goes to Neil. does this do anything to the affluent water that we're using now? We obviously have places that are using this and some future places we want. Is this going to tie us up with the ability to do what we want in Sparks?
Short answer is no, and you find the proof to back that up, or in their proposal, where they are asking for 4,000 acre feet of water a year, and they are proposing to commit 4,000 acre feet of other water as replacement water. So this would not count against the effluent program that we operate or the water rights that we do or do not have access to use.
And then the other thing, just to say clear for those out there that are listening, and I just want to make sure I'm right on this. So if there's ever a year of drought and all this happens, what does happen is they get less water. We don't. I mean, we still live and we survive and we do what we're going to do, but you want to talk about that for a moment?
Even in a drought, people run the dishwasher, take a shower, run the washing machine, and flush the toilet. We haven't, while you've certainly seen irrigation go down through the Great Recession, it's not as though a third of the community quit flushing the toilet. So we are still making 27, 28 million gallons a day of effluent water, treated water at Tumwharf. So to come back to the question that Councilman Lawson was asking, what's in this for them? It's a very stable supply. And that's going to be there, drought, not drought. It's there.
I only say this just because I'm sure what I hear from sometimes people with us having a whole movement happening next door, and it seems that Sparks is taking on the brunt of the housing and traffic and different things. There might be somebody out there asking about, well, who gets the priority of this water? And so for us, when it comes to our water, this will not affect our water table.
It would not. And to go back to that very simple, they're asking for 4,000 and they're bringing 4,000 to replace it. So it's a net zero change. We've spoken to you in updates, about the complexity of how the river is managed, about how historically we had 6,700 acre feet of permitted water rights from the state engineer, and how that is at least in question with the way the river is being managed now, rather than going from seasonal averages to, what'd you do on Wednesday so I can figure out what you can have on Friday. You understand that has put a big question mark at the end of that 6,700 acre feet. We simply don't know, and we're not going to know here very quickly. But that's, why are we as a staff why are we sitting in front of you here today with that big question being out there? You find the answer to that question in the root of their proposal. They want 4,000 and they're bringing 4,000 to supplant it, to replace it. So it's net does not impact what we own. Okay.
I have a couple questions. The 4,000 acre feet, is there a possibility, I know that's what we would be looking at in the agreement. Could it go higher? I'm looking at Switch has 1 million square feet right now. They're going to 7 million square feet on build out. Is there going to be and would that just be renegotiation? Could it possibly be more than the 4,000 at some point?
Absolutely possibly be more than 4,000. It could. We've had, loose conversations where it might double. That gets well down the road. So I think that if you give us the go-ahead here today, you give the manager the go-ahead to negotiate this, you'll see an agreement, a series of agreements that talk about a minimum of 4,000 acre feet, so that we agree to provide that much, and it gives us some room to grow the program, if you will.
And that at that point too, you'd be looking at if they needed more than 4,000, would they supplant it with 6,000?
Excellent question.
I mean, that would be part of the negotiation that would be in the agreement on how we would work out additional needs. And again, I'm concerned.
Probably, just in concept, let's say you tell us, go ahead and negotiate. We do that. We bring something back. You approve it. We've got the minimum of 4,000 on the books. We decide 3 years from now we need to grow the program to 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. Then there's going to probably be an amendment to that original agreement or an addendum that would outline the particulars of where those water rights are coming for and kind of who's in for what. There would be future.
And I'm concerned, like Councilman Dare, also protecting the water here, especially as we look at growth. And that my second question was on looking at this as an expansion to the water treatment plant. We all know from the sewer study that what will limit the growth in this region is not water. It's our sewer plant, sewer processing, the plant itself, and all the pipes and interceptors to get there. But ultimately, the ability of our current plan at its age to address the future needs of this community as we're growing so quickly. We know that's limiting. So by this, with the nitrates, really the expansion, it would allow us, I guess my question is, how would that affect as we're looking at, that zero end game of capacity? When we reach that capacity, does this just buy us further out into the future? And I know we don't know because all the growth we're expecting, we don't know if that's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but we do know it's coming. Does this just buy us more time?
Down the field.
Okay.
Certainly, at the very least, buys us more time, buys us well past the end of that 20-year consensus forecast.
So that's really that's a benefit, obviously, as we're looking at the growth.
Not completely remove the need to expand the plant. That we might get changes in environmental regulation that cause an expansion, but this would give us additional room to grow and a longer period of time before we had to expand the plant in order to serve a growth-based need.
And I guess my last point would just be, the fact that the cost. What do? And I understand this benefit. I understand, the nitrates. I understand the plant expansion. There are benefits to the city. Concerned about sending free money, for sending water for free when the users will be paying your GID for that land. And I know the cost to build the pipeline and to get it out there is substantial. If it's 15 years down the line. I guess for me, what financially, how does Reno and Sparks benefit from that? Is there a cost that we would recoup? And if it's 15, and I guess that would all be in the agreement. If I guess I'm apprehensive about just giving the water away for free.
It would absolutely be in the agreement. We would have to nail down who's going to pay for what and when would they make those payments. Just chasing the concept of maybe a delayed payment that I brought up. And
okay, and that was something you.
If you look at it in terms of avoiding a plant expansion, then it's just that many number of years that we don't have to raise our sewer rates to be able to support the money we're going to need to expand the plant. So there's the savings for our ratepayers. And certainly another way to describe this as the equivalent of a plant expansion, it's one we would receive the benefit of but not have to pay for a long time.
So the financial benefit is there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Abbott.
How much effluent do we currently pump out in winter and summer?
I would like to invite Misters Drinkwater and Hummel down to answer that question because they'll get the numbers right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. No worries. Mr. Abbott, the question is how much effluent do we pump on an average year now? And you said winter and summer? Winter is functionally zero. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Michael Drinkwater, Treatment Plant Manager. I apologize, sir. Winter is functionally zero. We do have one customer that uses it for dust control, but it de minimis through the winter months. And then approximately 3,500 acre feet during the summer months, and that's all irrigation water. Yes, sir. Golf courses, parks, UNR Farms is a big customer.
And I guess if we add that 4,000, so we are at 75, will we be able to do that in winter when the bugs aren't eating as much? Are we still able to discharge it? Or it would actually only be 4,000 in winter.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I'm not.
So in winter, when everything's lower capacity, are we able to pump out 4,000?
Yes, we have the water's there year round. What changes seasonally is how much nitrogen's in it. So to our benefit, discharging water in the winter actually has a greater benefit to our annual nitrogen loading than discharging water to the summer. When I say discharge, I mean reusing it beneficially as effluent and deferring the discharge to the river. There's slightly more nitrogen in the winter because the biology doesn't work quite as good as it does in the summertime. So effluent reuse in the winter has a bigger benefit to Tumwater than the equal amount of effluent in the summertime.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Mr. Kreutzer, is your presentation done? I was 16 when it started, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Our presentation is complete, but if there are any last questions,
Yeah.
I'll certainly be happy to try and answer.
Okay, Mr. Dare.
I move to direct the city manager to negotiate with the Tahoe Reno Industrial General Improvement District, the state of Nevada, the city of Reno, and the Truckee Meadows Water Authority, and to prepare a draft agreement for city council consideration based on the preliminary agreement terms outlined in the staff report. And good luck by June.
Okay, we have a motion. How about a second? Mr. Lawson?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, any other comments?
Yes.
We're open for discussion.
So, lots of details. I don't know how you guys gonna do it in 7 weeks, but you're gonna get back to us for our second meeting in June. That's 6 weeks, excuse me. Ton. And don't drop me 500 pages the day of the meeting. So I want some time to review it all. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks for that very detailed presentation, honestly. Thank you. It's a big deal. Okay, moving on to 9.5, consideration, discussion, and possible direction to initiate amendments to the Sparks Municipal Code regarding the use of shipping containers and other options for the construction of small residential housing units. Mr. Rundle.
Tim, Sparks City Council, Jim Rundle, Planning Manager, here to present this item. At the February 27th Sparks City Council meeting, Councilman Lawson asked the city manager to look at shipping containers.
That for me.
That concludes my presentation.
There's a $10 fine.
At the on the February 27th, Councilman Lawson directed the city manager to look at shipping containers as an alternate means of construction for residential units. Councilman Lawson subsequently clarified to city staff that the question more specifically was concerning the Sparks Municipal Code and anything that would inhibit the construction of small residential units, including tiny houses. The shipping containers are known as metal cargo containers, Connex boxes, steel cargo containers, or freight containers, seagoing containers. Neither the use of shipping containers as a building material nor small residential units are specifically identified in the Sparks Municipal Code. The city's building official relies on model codes such as those in the International Building Code. The International Building Code has not yet identified model codes for the use of shipping containers for small residential units. The building official anticipates that the International Building Code will consider small residential units with the use of shipping containers as a building material in next year's iteration. Presently, the building official views shipping containers as an acceptable building material for construction, as long as all of the electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and structural requirements are met. But those are only applicable to single-family residential. Until a model code is identified in a new iteration of the International Code, the building official will not be approving multiple family residential out of the use of shipping containers. He can approve single-family construction using this building material out of the alternate building material method. This is provided to the building official through the building code, and he can identify what the intent of those codes are through a residential designer who can also sign off on those plans. Other concerns in the Sparks Municipal Code that staff was concerned with was minimum unit size. Both the building code and the zoning code in the Sparks Municipal Code identify minimum sizes for residential units. The city's building code requires residences to be a minimum of 120 square feet in size. When you add a bathroom, for example, and you have an additional room, it goes up to 190 square feet. The zoning code is more restrictive in that the zoning code requires the average unit size to be 500 square feet. Another concern that we identified, your staff identified in the zoning code, was minimum lot size and minimum site size. Minimum lot sizes range from 6,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet in the zoning code. In the 4 residential multifamily zoning districts that we have in the city, the minimum site size ranges between 6,000 feet for a development. In the 4 mixed-use zoning districts, or the former TOD designation, the minimum lot size is also 6,000 square feet, but the city's administrator, through the city manager, we have the ability to waive that standard if a tentative map is required. And that was added in the zoning code update. Setbacks and building separation requirements are also a concern of staff when considering tiny homes. The mixed-use district, given the emphasis on the flexibility and density, permits the smallest setbacks of any of the zoning districts. In your staff report, staff identified municipal code setbacks by zoning district, and we also identified building code separation requirements, which come into play when it gets to be smaller setbacks. Fire separation standards can go up, increasing the cost of constructing an item such as a tiny home. Minimum and maximum densities were also identified in your staff report, and staff has identified that the most appropriate place, again, would be in the mixed-use district in the city of Sparks. Maximum site coverage is a standard in the municipal code. It inhibits the amount of structures a person can place on their property, so you don't exceed too many structures on a typical single-family lot. That is also a concern for many of the districts outside of the mixed-use district. Parking could be a concern. The zoning code requires 1 parking space per single-family bedroom, and it requires 1 parking space for multi-family units. Providing parking under the current zoning code, a small residential development would have to consider that in the design of the construction of the development. Landscaping is also a concern for staff that we identified. In multifamily districts, 20% of the site must be landscaped, and in the mixed-use district, it ranges from 10 to 20% of the site requiring landscaping. Single-family developments comprised of small units could be currently permitted in the mixed-use district if they can meet all of the development concerns that we just identified in this report. But again, the multifamily using Connex containers would not be able to be permitted at this time by building permit by concerns outlined by the building official. The mixed-use district was set up to accommodate the city's more intense and dense land use designations, and therefore we see it being the most appropriate zoning district to permit tiny homes in ultimately. Outside of the mixed-use district, staff does not foresee a substantial amount of demand to construct tiny homes because of the regulatory and market constraints. Should the city council direct the city manager to initiate code amendments for this type of construction or this type of housing in the city of Sparks, it may be appropriate for the city council to consider directing a workshop. A workshop could afford the city council the opportunity to fully articulate their goals, including housing goals and specific objectives and such as housing affordability and home ownership in the city of Sparks. That would be if the council intends to move forward with these code amendments. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions or comments? Mr. Dare.
I think something like this is important to talk about. We have such a need for low-income homes, things that are very affordable housing. But part of it is in those different zones is part of what I would be looking for, of making sure that they, almost like the DOT, or is that what we called it?
The MUD?
Yeah, MUD.
Mixed use district.
And that, I was looking at your map, so that includes in kind of that McCarran zoning? Is that what we're mainly talking about, of staying in?
Well, Councilman Dare, the city council can direct the city manager to look in any districts in the city of Sparks. Primarily, the north part of the city of Sparks, from Disk Drive north to La Posada, is comprised of handbooks, which probably may not be very applicable. It's a lot more difficult to amend standards for the handbook areas. But south of that area, we have far more standard zoning. The mixed-use district, for the most part, extends from Prater Way south to the interstate, from Sparks Boulevard west to the city line with Reno, and along the Audi Boulevard corridor.
I've been out looking at homes and different things, and the pricing obviously is skyrocketing in rental homes. Talking to a lot of our people on fixed incomes and different things, it's getting definitely to a place where there needs to be some open doors for them. And so unless there's another idea, but this seems like it definitely is going a different direction than Sparks has in the past. And I know there was reason we didn't do that, but I would, something like this seems wise.
You know, for me, I would hate to, I think if you're going to build mini homes anywhere, you're going to keep them in the mini home area. You don't want to drive down the street and have a $400,000 home here and a mini home next door. Doesn't help your values. And in reading, I don't know what article I saw, the homes in Reno are 685 square feet and they're going in the low 200s. So where's the affordable housing in that? You're getting no house for a lot of money. So there's all kinds of things that can be done. I'm just pointing it out. You know, it's not. I don't think we should do it any time in the future till the building codes come out for everything. But that's just my opinion. Ms. Bivey.
I would support, I think a workshop, a housing workshop is going to be critically important. I think using a lot of the information that Truckee Meadow Regional Planning Agency Housing Study is a good resource for us on types of housing, looking in the McCarran Loop. And really, one of the number one issues we're facing in this community is affordable housing and workforce housing, which as the market gets squeezed and prices go up, we're seeing too little of. So I think options like this, looking at the container homes cost-wise, tiny homes too are kind of more of a trendy kind of thing. When you see them like around the country, they're not necessarily per square foot. They're a lot more expensive than probably our houses are. But so those meet a different market niche. That's something that we don't have. Someone doesn't want to live in an apartment, but they want something smaller and per square foot. Yeah, they're spending more money on that. But it just gives, I think, different options. But I would, I think I think being flexible to the times and to what the needs of our the housing needs that we're facing right now, I would support looking at adjusting some of our zoning and changes, and of course working with, as far as the building codes as those change, us being able to respond to those, but keeping those, we have to still keep safety in mind. But I would support this, and I would like to see a workshop on housing.
Mr. Lawson.
I think we need to see a workshop too, and the reason for me to bring this forward was affordable housing is a major concern for us right now. We can't build houses fast enough. The way financing works anymore, you can't build housing develops like we did in the early 2000s. And we are not going to have anybody living in Story County because they don't have enough water to do what they need now. So they're going to live with us. We got to find a way to do it. So my whole intent here is not necessarily the container homes, although that's a cool and trendy idea, but having lot sizes. Right now, we can't build a single-family home on less than 6,000 square feet. I'm proposing that we look at lots as small as 2,200 to 2,500 feet, so you can make this more developable for the future. And running the numbers through my construction company, a $185,000 house is $1,000 a month payment, which is less than apartment rent averages at this time. And that's for roughly a 700 square foot house. You're getting about the same amount in an apartment with no place for your little designer dog to go outside. So to me, it's an idea that's come. It also hits the other notion that infill is good. more sprawl we have, the more sewer pipes we gotta put in, the more everything, infrastructure. We gotta build more firehouses. We can't afford firemen and policemen as we stand here today. So the more we infill, the better we are at regional planning. It's about 20% less expensive to build infill than it is to do sprawl. So it hits on so many levels. That's why I really think that for the city of Sparks, we can, and we're community oriented, we're family oriented. These would be single family, small lot houses that a single mom could afford on a decent salary, on a lower income salary. So it hits on a lot of levels for me, and I like to see Sparks in the forefront of this. But I think a workshop is an excellent idea before we spend way too much time going down the road. Let's do a workshop and get everybody's thoughts.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we are looking for a motion, and you can make the motion for a workshop so we can continue this. So what's your pleasure? Mr. Dare.
I move to direct the city manager to initiate amendments. Well, I think I move for the city manager to put together a workshop, is what I would say. I don't know. I know they're asking for an amendment. I don't know that we're ready to do that.
Based on your discussion, council, based on the discussion at the hearing today, I would say that seems to be the sentiment of the council, and that would be to initiate a workshop for the Sparks City Council, not necessarily at the amendments.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Bybee.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. I know you put a lot of time in that.
A lot of your staff did, Councilman.
Okay. 9.6, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of transferring $251,910 from the stabilization fund to the general fund to mitigate the costs related to January 2017 flood. Does this not include the one in February, just the January one? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, Mr. Driscoll, City Manager. For the record, Wayne Weber, Senior Accountant, Emergency Management, Financial Section Chief. Today, we seek your approval to transfer $251,910 from the stabilization fund to the general fund as outlined in City Manager Driscoll's budget recommendation.
Okay.
I'm looking for any questions.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve the transfer of $251,910 from the stabilization fund to the general fund to mitigate the cost of the January 2017 flood.
Okay, we have a motion, Mr. Abbott. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Okay, review, consideration, discussion of the performance of Sparks City Manager Stephen Driscoll. Mindy, come on down.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. Mindy Falk, Human Resources Manager for the record. Today, I will be presenting the City Manager Review and the extension of the City Manager's employment contract. City Manager Driscoll's current contract requires that the mayor and the City Council review his performance and that it be presented at a City Council meeting in May of each year. In April of 2017, I asked each of you to rate and comment on City Manager Driscoll's performance. Your ratings and comments are attached in today's agenda item as City Manager Review 2017. The second issue in the agenda is the matter of extending City Manager Driscoll's employment contract. This extension would begin July 1st of 2017. The attached new contract has no changes to content at all except for the dates. And finally, the matter of base pay. City Manager Driscoll respectfully asks the City Council to delay any potential salary adjustments until after the City of Sparks labor contracts and resolutions have been finalized. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions or comments from Mindy? Okay, how about let's address the the review. Any questions or comments on the city manager's review? Seeing none, I will say that I thought that the review was very good, and I believe this is the first time we've had all 5 council members actually do a review. Is it?
Thank you for your participation and your quick response. I really appreciate it.
That was good. I'm glad to see it. Mr. Dare.
I'd like to say I've been on this city council only since November, and thank you for taking the time to walk us through and all that good stuff. Ron knows, I've talked to him a little about this. This is a definite interesting way to do this, and so, yeah, it was very, I lead many other things, and this is not the process we go through to take the time to give advice or so, but thank you for all you've done.
Steve, I think you're doing a good job. Just keep us going forward. I appreciate your attention to detail, and I think the team that you're putting together makes the city stronger, and that's the important thing. And we have a policy, and it's not a policy; it's unwritten policy about promoting from within, and we've been able to do that in the police department, the fire department, and at the city. So thank you for what you do. I appreciate it. Anybody else? You have any comments, Steve?
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, it's just a pleasure working for this organization. As you know, I see organizations from all over the country, and I don't find very many that work as well together as we do. The good part is that we're all different, and we have lots of discussions, and we come to decisions on a timely and regular basis, and that makes my job as easy as possible. And I could not do it without a phenomenal staff. As you mentioned, this is probably the most professional staff that I've ever worked for. And as you know, my first half of my career was not in the public realm. It was in the private realm. And I'd put this group up against anybody. So with that, it's a pleasure serving you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess we'd look for the motion to accept the review as presented with no change in salary or benefits at this time. And to extend his contract for a year. Pretty much, that's my motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Thank you.
Okay. 9.8, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of a business impact statement regarding restricted gaming business licenses. Doug, how are you?
Great, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. How are you?
Good, good.
Mayor Pro
It's all
Tem
you.
Smith, members of the council, Doug Thornley, Assistant City Attorney. I'm here today to discuss a business impact statement associated with a proposed amendment to Title V of the Sparks Municipal Code that's related to restricted gaming in bars and bar restaurants. As you'll recall, I was here, I want to say in February, and the council asked for a little more time to do a little more research. We continued it to this date, and so by way of background, if you'll recall, restricted gaming is 15 or fewer slot machines. State Regulation 3 presumes suitability for restricted gaming in 5 types of businesses: bars, taverns, saloons, convenience stores, grocery stores, drug stores, and liquor stores. Each of those comes with certain regulatory parameters that are set by the Gaming Control Board and the Gaming Commission. Restricted gaming is also allowed in other locations with proof that it's consistent with the intent of State Gaming Regulation number 3. And to make that determination, what the Gaming Control Board does is they essentially apply a 7-factor test that involves the floor space used by gaming versus the primary business, the amount of investment in the gaming component compared to the amount of investment in the primary business, the time required to manage the gaming component versus the time required to manage the primary business, the revenue generated by gaming versus the revenue generated by the primary business, whether a substantial portion of financing for the creation of the primary business is provided in exchange for the right to operate the restricted gaming component of the business at that location, and other factors in terms of marketing, public perception of the business, the relationship of the slot machines to the primary business, and other amenities that are offered to customers. That's a long way of saying that state law requires restricted gaming to be incidental to a primary business in all instances. And the way the city of Sparks handles that is through our zoning code. What we've done is say that restricted gaming is an accessory use to any other allowed use in the city. Now, what that means is kind of why we're here. So with that background notwithstanding, over the past few years across the state, primarily in Clark County and Reno, concerns have been raised as to the incidental nature of restricted gaming as it relates to primary businesses in certain contexts when you're talking about bars and bar restaurants. And so what the proposed amendment to Title V does is it seeks to create a standard by which the incidental nature of restricted gaming at bars and bars restaurants might be fairly and uniformly evaluated or ascertained in the city of Sparks. And the way in which it accomplishes that goal is it adopts or proposes to adopt a definition of bar and a definition of bar restaurant, and requires that any entity that is formed that counts as a bar or bar restaurant from the date of adoption forward, that proposes to have more than 7 slot machines, would need a 40-inch bar in which the slot machines would be contained. So it would essentially require bar top machines in a bar of a prescribed height. That said, what the city of Sparks is proposing that is different from what's happened in Clark County and Reno is that the proposed amendment includes a complete grandfathering provision. What that means is if a bar or a bar restaurant is in business today, they would not be required to update the facility to come into compliance with the proposed amendment. They would be allowed to operate as they are today. If they wanted to expand, if they wanted to open a new location, they would be required then to comply with the proposed amendment. And so that's why we're here with the business impact statement. We've determined that the expansion of the business or the creation of the business would necessarily impact the business because of this new regulation. And so state law requires us to put together a business impact statement, and it requires that the city council accept the business impact statement before taking any meaningful step towards approving that amendment, or I suppose debating the larger policy question. And so the first thing we do when we put together a business impact statement is we notify all the businesses that we think might be impacted by the proposed regulation, and we ask them to comment on the proposal. And so what we did in this case was we sent direct mail to every entity who holds a gaming license in the city of Sparks, along with the Nevada Resort Association and the RSCVA, and we asked for comment back on the proposal. Largely, what we got were phone calls clarifying that the proposal would not apply to non-restricted licensees, which is table games, more than 15 slot machines. We did receive substantive comment from one entity. It's the Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc. It's Dottie's. And that letter is attached as Exhibit A to the business impact statement that's before you right now. Staff anticipates that any adverse impact to businesses will be mitigated by virtue of the true grandfathering provision that I described earlier, and effectively that there will be some stability in the regulation, in that everybody knows what standard they are being adjudicated against when they seek to operate restricted gaming in a bar or a bar restaurant. So that certainty and stability staff sees as a benefit to the industry. Dottie's has indicated that they believe the changes proposed are inappropriate because they only apply to bars and bar restaurants. That said, convenience stores are limited by Regulation 3 to 7 machines, so this change wouldn't apply to them anyway. Liquor stores similarly are limited to 4 machines. This change wouldn't apply to them. Again, remember, we're talking about more than 7 machines, fewer than 16. So 15 or fewer, more than 7 in terms of the amendment. And then grocery stores and drug stores, any gaming component needs to be separated from the primary business by a 3-sided alcove. And so state law does differentiate between the various types of presumed suitable businesses for restricted gaming. Dottie's takes exception to the limitation on packaged liquor sales. Staff believes that allowing packaged liquor sales from these locations further muddies the issue with respect to whether or not primary business is gaming or whether the primary business is something else. The letter indicates that Dottie's believes that providing a diagram to the city as to where the gaming components of the business are located on the actual floor of the facility, they believe that would be burdensome. In state gaming regulation number 4, they're required to provide a diagram upon their application to the state for a gaming license. So it's a diagram that already exists. And then finally, Dottie suggests, and I think rightly, that this is ultimately a policy question that the City Council will need to resolve amongst itself as to whether or not you see that there is a problem with respect to whether or not restricted gaming is incidental to a bar or bar restaurant here in the city of Sparks, or whether you disagree and you don't see that as a problem. As local regulators, city's in the best position to determine whether or not there's a primary business of a bar or bar restaurant, or whether the primary business at a particular location is in fact restricted gaming, which, as you know, is not allowed by state law. The reason for that is that the city gets the local licensing fees. We have an understanding of what the revenue looks like on an operating basis, whereas when the Gaming Control Board makes its determination of suitability, they're provided with a pro forma. So they're provided with an estimate as to what the gaming revenue will look like versus what the actual operating business, the primary business, will look like. And so in practice, the city is perhaps in a better position to make a determination as to whether or not the gaming component is truly incidental. City charter confers the authority to regulate businesses, alcohol, and gaming within the city limits on the city council. And proposed amendment to Title V, upon which this business impact statement is based, reflects a comprehensive approach to that task with respect to restricted gaming. I urge the council to accept this business impact statement in order to move forward with the debate regarding the policy related to restricted gaming in bars and bar restaurants. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a couple questions for you. If I wanted to start a business, a restaurant, and have and obtain a restricted gaming license, the business that I was running would have to be the restaurant, and incidental would be the gaming portion of it.
That's correct.
Same thing if it was a bar. If I had a bar, wanted to open a bar with some slot machines in it or tabletop, same deal. My main business would have to be the bar. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So when it comes to the 10%, is that just an area, or is that 10% of your business?
The way it's written in the municipal code is that the 10% number relates only to floor area of the particular location. So the primary business would have to take up at least 90%, whereas the accessory use, the incidental business in this case, would be restricted to 10% of the floor area.
Okay, so talk to me about the grandfather clause. So every existing business would be fine with what they're doing doing right now, no matter what. But what happens when they renew their license yearly? Does that change anything, or they're grandfathered in and they won't change?
So long as the business does not change in any sort of substantial way.
Like a remodel or anything like that?
Well, even a remodel, I think, there's some leeway in the provision, although I don't want to speak too soon. I don't recall off the top of my head. I think a substantial change would be something that necessitates perhaps a use permit, or a major overhaul of what they're doing, or an increase in the number of machines in a particular space.
So if somebody were to purchase a restaurant and it had gaming in it, it would still have to be that restaurant would be the main business, right?
Yes.
They purchased a bar with gaming in it. It'd have to be a bar with incidental going to gaming.
Yes.
Ms. Bybee.
I just have a statement. Sorry. I don't know if they're trying to turn it on. I'm mute right now. Okay. Sorry. I just need to read a statement. On this agenda item, I'm going to be abstaining. because my husband works for a non-restricted gaming licensee that is a member of the Nevada Resort Association. I'm unsure whether this specifically rises to a level of a disqualifying conflict under the ethics in government law. I believe it's prudent to be cautious with respect to this type of issue. Therefore, as required by state law, I will not vote or advocate for or against passage of this measure. Thank you.
Mr. Dare.
I have to disclose that my wife works at IGT, but it does not preclude me from voting on this, so I'd like to share as well. I am very much pro-business in what we're doing here in Sparks, but I think that very much brings us to the table that when it comes to the business permitting process, we need equal play, equal field, and people need to follow what is there. And because of that, I just have to say, I would say we move forward on what is proposed here.
Any other questions or comments? I am going to open it up to, we have two different sides in here, so I'm going to let them speak. Mr. Lawson?
I was going to make a motion.
Let's
This is on the business impact statement only.
Right.
We're going to address the ordinance in the next item, right?
No, not today.
The ordinance in the next item is just the first reading, so that you'd address it at your next scheduled meeting.
So I'd like to hear testimony. Who's ever first? Zeb? Come on down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. Sev Carlson of Kemfer Kroll on behalf of Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc. You commonly know them as Dottie's. Dottie's owns and operates a number of non-restricted casinos throughout the state of Nevada, as well as operates a number of bars that also maintain restricted gaming licenses as issued by the state of Nevada and the local governments in which they operate those businesses. Here in Sparks, we have a single non-restricted casino on Victorian, and we also have 4 bars with restricted licenses. In northern Nevada, Dottie's employs 258 people. 60 of those people are employed here in Sparks. In terms of the business impact statement, and I also have comment should we get to the first reading, but in terms of the business impact statement, certainly the true grandfathering provision saves businesses that are operating in what would be out of conformance with the ordinance were it to be adopted, in terms of the 40-inch bar height, in terms of whether they have a packaged liquor license to accompany their on-premises liquor license. But I think we have to look at it more than existing businesses, existing shops. This will have an impact on Dottie's. They have intentions to expand in Sparks, and any expansion, should this ordinance pass, would have to modify their business model, how they do business, simply by raising the bar. Dottie's came into the marketplace having identified a segment of the market that wasn't being satisfied by either other restricted operators or non-restricted operators. And by imposing a ordinance that says we're going to define a bar simply based on the height of a bar top and nothing more. I don't know where that leads in terms of the policy of addressing ultimately what state regulators look at, Regulation 3, Form 27, on what is incidental or not. I think our opponents will always advocate that you need to look at incidental as 50% or greater. That's not the case. The state looks at a number of factors. Revenue is only one of those factors. Historically, when you look at similar ordinances, whether it's in Clark County or in the city of Reno, this is about competition. They might say it's about leveling the playing field, but it's about competition, and it's about eliminating competition. We've had testimony before the Nevada legislature. We've had testimony before state gaming regulators that there is a conflict between some members of the Nevada Resort Association and Dottie's, who attempted to join the Nevada Resort Association but was denied membership. So again, when we look at the ordinance, it is solely focused on the Dottie's model, not only in terms of the bar top height, which Dottie's has looked at and said its customer demographic doesn't want to sit at a 40-inch bar top height. If you pass this ordinance, even though the existing 4 locations will be protected, and we appreciate the fact that Sparks is looking at a true grandfather, unlike some other local governments, moving forward, Dottie's will not be able to offer the same experience for its customers. Those customers who live here in your city, it has an impact moving forward. I'll reserve my other comments in terms of the substance of the ordinance should the business impact statement be accepted.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Mr. Alonso, would you like to speak? Welcome. It's on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. I'm Michael Alonso with Lewis and Roca. I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Resort Association. And I don't want to rehash a lot of the issues that have been covered, but I do want to make a couple of points. The analysis in Regulation 3, State Gaming Commission Regulation 3 that we're talking about, the board and the commission don't go through that analysis if you are a bar, tavern, saloon, grocery store, drugstore, convenience store, liquor store. They don't go through all of those different tests. They take it for granted that you're one of those things and you meet those tests if you come in and you sign your application under penalty of perjury and say you're a bar. So what we're talking about is at the local level, that's where those decisions are made. And that's why we think it's important to, if you're going to have a bar, then you should be a bar and you should have a bar top with the machines in the bar. Not to mention the fact that your local code, nothing to do with the state, requires you to have less than 10% or 10% or less for the accessory use. What we're doing here is grandfathering everybody in and on a go-forward basis saying you have to comply with this going forward. Unlike Clark County and the city of Reno, where they had retroactivity and they were given a certain period of time to retrofit their locations. There is no approval or allowance in state law or in your code for something that gaming is in a restricted fashion is primary. It has to be incidental to the primary business, and that's what we're trying to get to. Expansion, I want to touch on that because that was touched on earlier. There's provision in the ordinance for expansion. If you already have 15 machines and you're already grandfathered in, which the 4 Dottie's locations are grandfathered in, you can expand your location. There's language specifically in the ordinance that allows you to expand it. You can't expand beyond the 15 machines, but you can't do that anyways. In a lot of these cases, whether it's Nevada Restaurant Services or somebody else, they go into a location when they take over that lease that has a bar with bar top machines. They rip them out. That's their business model. But we're not talking about something on a going forward basis that they can't do. In a lot of cases, they're going in, they're closing a kitchen down, they're removing the bar and the bar top and doing what we consider to be a slot parlor and something that isn't allowed by state law and it isn't really allowed by the Sparks Municipal Code. So we are talking about leveling the playing field. We are talking about allowing for ease of enforcement because it's easy to walk into a location if you have a bar with bar top machines and see whether or not it's in compliance. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that anybody has.
Questions or comments? At this time,
Thank you.
Joe, would you like to speak? I know you're a business owner. Come on down. Welcome. And just identify yourself, please.
You know what, I am certainly not trying to change the face of how anybody does their business, but having 6 locations in the city of Sparks that all have gaming machines in them, I feel that we should all play by the same rules. We should all be doing it the same way. I've complied with all of the rules, laws, and regulations, and I also employ a considerable a number of people in the city of Sparks. And I just think that we should all be doing the same thing. Past that, I have no objections. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak at this time? Okay, let's bring it back to the council. Questions, comments, motion? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, no vote. Donald, Mr. Abbott, go ahead, no.
What is Dottie's claim to be right now?
Well, it's probably best answered by a representative from Dottie's. What I can tell you is that on the business licenses here in Sparks, it's kind of a mishmash of stuff. So depending on the location, they might claim to be one thing, and another location, they self-identify as another.
Zev Carlson for the record. In looking at a number of applications, Dottie's consistently uses the terms either bar, tavern, food service might be provided. We're not claiming to have a full restaurant with a grease trap, but we use the same ovens that Starbucks provides hot food to its customers in. But the bar tavern language is the typical language. Dottie's originated in southern Nevada, where the term tavern is the typical nomenclature. Here in northern Nevada, it tends to be bar rather than tavern. So some of those applications do refer to tavern rather than bar, but we look at those as being synonymous, especially when you look at state law that talks about a bar essentially being a saloon, tavern, or an establishment that serves alcoholic beverages, wine, beer by the drink.
So, normally when you go to a bar, put 20 in a machine, you get a comped drink or something of that sort. When we had our meeting, we had 2 coffees and a tea. None of us gamed, but they were comped that day. Is there a reason why that was taken care of, comped without gaming?
Yeah, so all comps at Dottie's are included in how they calculate revenues. So with respect to the city of Sparks, whatever the retail value is, it's not a discounted value. If each coffee were $2 a piece, it would be $6 of revenue that would be included towards the revenue calculation for the local license. From the state sales tax piece, it gets a little bit more nuanced, but it does get counted towards revenue. On the comp side, there's a little bit of a difference between sales tax and use tax. But Dottie's has always been in compliance on all of its tax obligations, not only at the state level, but at every local level in which it operates.
So they paid $6 for ours plus sales tax that day, pretty much.
And I'm using the $6 as an example. I don't know what that cost is, but whatever if you were to go in today and just ask for a cup of coffee, whatever the rack rate for that cup of coffee is, whatever that retail rate is, that's what they base the comp on. And so they include that in revenue. It's not a discounted amount.
So them comping it, they're giving away free stuff. They're buying my drink. Why, or not just mine, but it doesn't make sense to me why a business would give away free stuff.
There are a lot of businesses that give away free things. I give away free legal services. I wouldn't do it for everyone, Mayor Pro Tem, but it's part of my business model. It's part of my firm's business model, and I think it's advocated by the state bar that we offer, even if we're by the hour lawyers, that we do take some of our time and provide pro bono services.
How does the city of Sparks define bar?
At present, we don't.
Part of what this next portion is. That's what this is about, is defining that, correct? That's what the next thing's going to do if we get past this.
Proposed amendment, among some other things, does offer a definition for bar and for bar restaurant. Councilman Dare, yes.
That said, I'll move to adopt a business impact statement related to the proposed amendment to SMC Chapter 5.24 concerning the operation of restricted gaming on City of Sparks. And this would be the first reading, and then we'll come back for a larger conversation of what that all means. Then, am I correct on this?
This one is not the first reading.
Oh, no.
Next agenda
two
item
are
is the first reading. And then, yes, at the next meeting, you'd have the larger debate on the policy issues. Yes, that's correct.
We have a motion, Mr. Lawson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Okay, it passes 4-0 with one abstention. Thank you. Okay. Item 9.9 is a first reading. City Clerk to read the bill by title.
Bill number 2715, an ordinance to amend Sparks Municipal Code Title V Business Licenses, Taxes, and Regulations, Chapter 5.24, Gambling Establishments, to add definitions and create the requirements of bars or bar restaurants operating slot machines through a restricted gaming license, together with other matters properly related thereto.
Okay, this is the first reading for Bill number 2715. The public hearing and second reading of this bill will be conducted at the regular City Council meeting on Monday, May the 22nd, 2017. Agenda item 9.10 is also a first reading. City Clerk.
Bill number 2716, the general ordinance rezoning real property owned by Smith Intervidas Trust from SF40 residential single family 40,000 square feet minimum lot size to SF20 residential single family 20,000 square foot minimum lot size located at 3270 Spanish Springs Court, Sparks, Nevada, and providing other matters properly related thereto.
This is the first reading for Bill number 2716. The public hearing and second reading of this bill will be conducted at the regular City Council meeting on Monday, May 22nd, 2017. Okay, we're going to move on to, there are no public hearing items, no planning and zoning items. Comments from the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Pardon me? I said I like okay. I also like okay. Anybody else in the public wishing to shout out? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Comments from City Council and City Manager. Any comments? Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I have an announcement. The following committee appointments are available. Civil Service, 2 members for a 3-year term. Parks and Recreation Commission, 3 members for 3-year terms. And the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Board of Trustees, 1 member for a 4-year term. Persons interested in serving on these committees should complete a community service application available from the city clerk's office. You may also apply online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us. Click on Government on the webpage, then under Boards and Commissions, click Volunteering for a Sparks Board or Commission. Fill out the online application and submit. Applications will be accepted until the close of business on Thursday, May 25th, 2017 at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. Mr. Dare.
Before we go, I just want to do a shout out. If anybody's interested in finding something to do on Memorial Day on the 29th at the marina, we're going to have an honor march. It's something you can be a part of. And we're going to actually have flags and all that fun stuff. We're going to march around the whole thing. And it's pretty neat. We have a guy named Rich, who is a Gold Star father, which means his son died at war, and he's going to be leading the charge. And so we at Sparks, we're very much standing with and supportive of our veterans and especially our Gold Star. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anybody else wishing to speak? Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, just May 20th, I'll be out repainting the S. So I invite everyone, especially you guys, to come help me out.
Why would you do that?
Because I care about my community.
Oh, wow.
So you guys are all welcome to come if you can. It's at 9 a.m. We're going to meet up above Northern Nevada.
Yeah, we love to volunteer on this council. So. Anybody else? Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.